Welcome back to the sound section of the Words to Live By Community Art Project. In our last video, we talked through some of the basics of recording with Audacity, including setting up and then actually doing the recording. And we also covered some of the features and the tools in the track section of the program. So if you missed anything in that video or you haven't yet watched it, definitely feel free to pause this video and go back to that one for some more information on recording. But in this video, we'll be talking more in depth about actually editing your audio piece. So editing can be a kind of fun process. This is where you get to sort of mix and match and break things apart if you want to, and also add some fun effects to make your audio sound a little different. So we'll be talking through just some of the basics. Audacity has a lot of different features that you can use for editing. So you are welcome to explore all of those on your own time, but we'll just be talking through some of the basic steps you can take to edit or make adjustments to your audio piece. So let's dive in. So I've made a sample recording. This is pretty similar to the one that we recorded together in the last video, where I'm basically just saying, welcome to the project, and here is just a sample recording. So we did cover some very light editing in the last video with things like mute and solo, and then adjusting the left and right, and then volume of the audio in each track. So those are some of the quick editing tools you can use if you want to make adjustments to some of the things like the volume. But there are also a lot of other tools that you can use here in Audacity. So I think I discussed back when we did the intro to Audacity video that there's this set of 6 buttons up here. And I didn't go through them in that video because a lot of these are more geared toward the editing part, but now we can actually dive into those. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but just a couple highlights. So this first one in the top left that has the I-beam icon, this one that you can see on my screen right here, the little line. Maybe you've seen an icon like this before if you've used Microsoft Word, or some sort of typing program. And this is the selection tool in Audacity. So this is what's going to actually allow you to select a certain section of your audio that you maybe want to cut out and get rid of, that you maybe want to just do something different with. So how do you do this? It's pretty much just a click and drag feature. So let's say there's some silence at the end of this audio piece I made. So let's say I maybe just want to take that silence out. So how do I do that? How do I get rid of this section? So to do that, I put the I-beam here in the audio. I click, and then I drag over this section that I want to take out. And so you can see when I go to select this, it turns light blue instead of this gray color that it was before. So I'll do that one more time, just clicking in the track and then pulling over the section that I want to highlight. And then to get rid of it, this is pretty simple. I can just press the delete or the backspace key on my keyboard. And now you can see that that silent section is gone. So that's how you get rid of audio, is by selecting it and then cutting it out. So the other option that I have here is to go ahead and move some of the audio around. So let's say I want to move this section of the audio over here, and I want to leave some blank space in between. So I start by selecting the audio. And again, that's highlighted in blue because I've selected it. And then I have a couple options. So what I'm going to want to do here is split the audio. And this basically just means that we cut it into 2 different pieces from just this one recorded track. So I can go up to this toolbar in the top that we used a little bit in our last video, and I will go to Edit, and then down to Clip Boundaries, and then I can select Split. You can see at the end over here it has this little kind of funky symbol and then the letter I. This pretty much just means on my keyboard, if I didn't want to go to to the toolbar, Edit, Split, I could just hit Command and then I on my keyboard, and that would split the audio there for me. But since I'm here, I'm just going to click Split, and you can see this thick black line shows up here. So that shows me that the audio split at this section. So now, I'm going to actually introduce another one of the tools. So let's say, I'm still with the selection tool, right? Because the I-beam is here. And again, this is only really for selecting the chunks of the audio that you want to change in some way. So to actually move this clip and give that blank space I was talking about, I have to go back up to this section up here with the 6 buttons. And I'll choose this one with the line and the 2 arrows. This is called the Time Shift tool. So I'm going to click that. And you can see now when I hover back over the audio section, the second clip where I'd split it, those 2 arrows show up with the line. So now I can just move this to the right, to the left. I can sort of put it wherever I want it. So now if we listen back to part of this.
The Words to Live By Community Art Project. This is a test recording for teaching purposes.
So you can hear there was that silence in between. That's all this light gray area that I created between these 2 clips. Now, I will say, if you are trying to move something, let's say from over here in the front, over to the back, I can't imagine that this wouldn't be possible. I'm not totally sure how you do it. So I'd say if you're running into something like that, your easiest bet might actually be just to re-record what you already did, because it also might sound a little bit smoother. If you just rearrange the words in your script, if you're using one, and then, just re-record it. But this works really well if you're trying to split something, that's here in the end, or let's say you have another track where you want to, let some music play between these 2 separate sections. This will work really well for that. So again, just clicking and dragging with the Time Shift tool. The other button that's up here that I think is interesting to explore is this one in the middle at the top. So this says it's called the Envelope tool. I don't know exactly why they called it that, because it doesn't really send anything, or it's not really mail related. It's actually related to the volume of the piece. So you can see when I click on the selection tool or time shift, these clips are gray, but when I click on the envelope tool, the color changes a little bit. So you can see there's the dark and the light gray. So the envelope tool is where you want to change, if you want to change the volume at specific parts of the recording. So we talked a little bit about using this, this tick mark ruler sort of tool over here to adjust the overall volume of the track. That'll help you make the entire track louder or quieter, whatever you prefer. But the envelope tool allows you to change the volume within the recording that you're doing. So what do I mean by this? Let's say there's a part of the recording that I did that's really, really quiet, and I want to make that louder. But then a couple seconds later, the clip got really loud, and I want to make that part quieter. So just changing the overall volume of the clip might give me some problems, because if I move it to the right to make the whole track louder, that really quiet section will get louder, but so will the section that's already really loud. Same thing if I make it quieter, right? The section that was too loud, that'll get, a nice sort of more comfortable volume, but the clip that's already really quiet, that'll get even quieter, so it'll be even harder to hear. So this is where you might want to bring in the envelope tool, because this will allow me to choose how loud or quiet I want the audio to be at different points. So how does this work? So to use the envelope tool, you can see it's these two little arrows pointing, or these two triangles, sorry, pointing both up and down. And to change the volume, I can sort of click along in the audio where I want the volume to change. So I'm just going to choose 4 points here. And then at those different points, I just click and drag up to make it louder and down to make it quieter. So I'll just give you a short sampling of what this kind of sounds like, and you can see the shape of these gray and these dark and lighter gray areas kind of changes, and you can track what the volume generally looks like using these sort of purpley lines at the top. So now I'm going to make this a little quieter. So now I will play this back for you, and you'll get a sense for how the volume kind of now dips in and out in this clip. Whoops. Sorry, I'm going to go back to the beginning.
Hello, this is the sound section of the Words to Live By community art project.
So you can tell that was very slight because the sections of quietness are quite brief, but especially around here, I hope you could sort of hear that the audio got a little bit quieter and then sort of opened back up. So again, this can be good to play with if you've maybe recorded something that has certain sections that are a little bit louder than you want them to be, or a little bit quieter. Or if you just want to add a kind of fun like up and down volume effect to your piece, you can also do that here. So those are some of the tools up here. There are these different ones like the draw tool and this multi-tool. Again, those are things you can definitely play around with if you want to, because there's some fun stuff you can do there. So I think where a lot of the fun really happens, though, is in maybe adding some effects to your audio piece, which is definitely possible here in Audacity. So how do I do that? So first, we're going to want to click back on the selection tool again. And then I'm going to use that to highlight a certain section of the audio, or I could just select the entire audio, which is probably a little bit easier, and I would recommend actually doing this if you're going to add effects, because it might sound a little strange to have a couple seconds where there's something like, let's say, an echo, and then the rest doesn't have that. So to add an effect, you go back up to this toolbar at the very, very top of the screen, and you can see there's this option for effect. So when I click on this, there are tons of options here. I'm not even sure how many are here, but it looks like upward of 25, definitely. We're not going to go through all of these different effects in this video because there are a lot of them here that you can definitely play around with. It's a lot of fun to just to go through this, but I'll show you generally how it looks and also how it works to add an effect. So again, I've selected the audio I'm going to add an effect to, which is the important first step. If you don't do that, I don't think Audacity will let you add an effect. So let's say I maybe want to add an echo. So this will just add this sort of light, basically an echo effect, sort of like, in movies when they're in a cave and they say, hello, hello, hello. So let's click on this effect. And so here you'll usually get some, not for all of the effects, but for quite a few of them, you'll get some options. And you do just sort of have to play around with these. Like, I don't know too much what a decay factor is. I'm assuming that's like how much quieter it gets each time it echoes. And then the delay time is the time between, what's actually being said in the recording and when you hear it echo. So I'm going to put 0.5 here just for fun. And the nice thing about this is that some of the effects will let you preview what it sounds like. So once you hit OK, it'll put the effect onto your audio. If you're not sure you actually want to use this effect, or you just kind of want to test it out and see what it's like, I would definitely click the preview option before you add it to the audio clip. So I'm just going to hit preview, and we'll get a sense for what this echoing effect sounds like.
Hello. This is the sound section of the Words to Live By Community Art Project.
So you can hear in the back of that, it's pretty much just repeating everything that I said a bunch of times, which can be kind of fun to experiment with. For now, though, I'm just going to hit cancel over here because I don't really want that effect on here. So again, going back, there are a ton of different things that you can choose here and that you can play around with. You can also change the speed of your audio clip. So if I click and drag this little bar to the right or to the left, going to the right will make it faster. So you can hear the preview.
Hello, this is the sound section of the Words to Live By Community Art Project.
My voice doesn't really sound like that in real life, but because I've changed the speed to be faster, it does. And same thing if I go down to the left to make it slower. Maybe that was a little too slow. Let's go back up here a little bit. So yeah, again, I'm going to hit cancel because I maybe don't want this effect on my audio. But yeah, so there's a lot to play around with up here. There are also things you can add in to start and end your audio. Like this fade in will sort of bring like a gentle opening to your audio where it doesn't just start off, at its regular volume right away. It'll maybe start at 0 and gradually get a little louder in just a couple seconds. You can reverse your audio, which can be kind of fun. There are some musicians throughout history who've sort of maybe tried to put like hidden messages in the reversed audio. So if you listen to certain songs backwards, there's something that's being said in there. So that can be fun if you want to reverse your audio. There's something like this studio fade out. So if you've ever listened to a piece of music where, toward the end of the song, instead of just ending, on a certain note or with like a hit of a drum, they sort of fade it out. That's what that'll do. So again, a lot of different effects that you can play around with here. So I'd really encourage you to check these out and just play around with them if you'd like to. So those are pretty much some of the basics of recording. One other thing I should mention that I didn't bring up in previous videos, this might be more helpful for editing. Sorry, I think I just said recording a second ago. So for editing, this might be a little helpful. So over here, there are these little magnifying glass icons. So I would say the main ones that might be interesting to experiment with are these two over on the left, zoom in and zoom out. So if you click zoom in, it'll make your audio a little longer in terms of how you see it. And you can see up at the top, these show the seconds of audio that you've recorded. Now this is down to by the 10th of the second. Whereas if I zoom back out, you can see now I'm at just these 1 second increments. So going into like the 10th of a second can be helpful if there's like a very, very specific thing you're trying to, let's say, delete from your audio, or that you want to make some sort of change to. That's when you would really want to zoom in and go to something like the 10th of a second. Otherwise, though, I think you're totally good just sticking to, the full seconds or maybe half a second. So the other thing we just wanted to discuss briefly was adding outside audio, like let's say a song by someone else or maybe some nature sounds into your Audacity file. So this is definitely possible. To do this, you would want to find a piece of music or some sort of recording. Some places we can recommend, I'm just switching over to Google Chrome over here, is a website called Jamendo. And this will be our first option here, jamendo.com. So this is where you can find some free music to download. And we'll hit start over here. Or you might want to use music for videos. Either of these you can sort of play around with. But yeah, this one has a lot of music from independent artists. So people who maybe aren't, super well known, not stuff that you'd hear on like the top 40 radio. But they have some good music here, and you can play it, listen to what it sounds like. And you can also, in this section over here where there's this down arrow and then this sort of bracket shape, that's where you can download the audio. So click on that to download these songs. The other thing that's also available, I'll open this in another tab. If you search for, Amazon free MP3, and we're going to click on this first option, Amazon.com, free songs, music by price. So if you are not familiar with Amazon, they're probably, I would say, the biggest online retailer, because you can buy pretty much anything. And in their music section, they actually have a lot of free music. And it was actually kind of great for creating audio files, because some of them are like this, where, this is by Carole King, who's quite a famous musician. But there's also a lot sort of like this flowing water creek. So this is just, a recording of like a creek gently going through, maybe in a forest or something. That might be nice to add to the background of your audio. And there's also stuff like this where there is classical music that people have played that's available for free. Use Ave Maria here. There is also other music by artists that, might include someone singing and whatnot. But what I really like about this option is that you can get things like this, like the ocean waves, and also, maybe some instrumental music as well. So again, let's say I want to download this Caribbean sound. I can just get the song for free, and I will probably have to create an account to purchase this, but again, it's free, so you can just go ahead and do that and follow the download steps. So once you've downloaded an audio file to your computer and you want to bring it into your Audacity file, we'll go back up to this toolbar again and go to File, Import, and then Audio. And then you pretty much just have to go through your computer and find the audio that you're looking for. So wherever you might have saved it before, you can choose that file, let's say this one, and then just hit open. And it'll import as a new track directly into Audacity. For now, I'm going to hit cancel because I'm not going to do that. But again, once you've imported it, the song or the background, the background sound should show up as a second track right here in the bottom. So the last piece of this, hang in there, I know we've covered a lot of information, but the last piece is to export your audio piece. So once you're done editing, once everything sounds good to you, you're going to want to export it. And I think we talked about this in an earlier video, but when you create something in Audacity and you save it, you can only use that file in Audacity. You can't open that file in something like, let's say, iTunes. So you wouldn't really be able to play it like on your phone or on another person's computer unless that person had Audacity. So to be able to, let's say, share this online, to upload it to our Google Drive folder for this project, and to do things like that, you need to export it. So how do you do this? So to export, we're going to go up to this toolbar in the top again, go back to File like we just did, and then hit Export. And then you can see there are these different options. I would recommend choosing Export as MP3. So WAV, OGG, and MP3, these are all just different forms of audio that you can export to. I just recommend MP3 because it's a pretty common audio format, and I think it'll be pretty easy to play it on different programs or different devices if you want to. So I'm just going to click Export as MP3. And then I'll just have to choose a name for this up here and then a place to save this. Again, as I've said in other videos, I'm doing this on an Apple computer, so your screen might look a little bit different from this as you're doing it, but the process again should be similar. So I'm just going to call this Test Recording 2, and I'm going to save it to my Documents section. And down here, there are some other options. So I've chosen I want the MP3 file. And there's also some settings for quality. You can do standard, extreme, or insane, also medium. I'm just going to go with standard. And then variable speed, I'm honestly not super sure about, so I'm just going to leave that as it is for now. And then I hit save. And you'll get this little option to edit some information. So this is helpful if you're creating something musical. Like let's say you know, when other people see the file and they play it on a program, this might show that it's by a certain artist. So that would be your name and what the track is called, and maybe the year and things like that. So if you wanna make this kind of maybe feel a little official, you can add your name here for the artist, as well as, you know, maybe if you're creating a couple different files, you can add an album title, a year, and other things like that. For now, I'm just going to leave this blank because I'm just doing a test recording, and I'll hit OK. And so now when I go to the Documents section of my computer, I should be able to find that test recording 2 file there and play it in something like iTunes or another program. So that's pretty much how you export, and from there you can treat it like you would you know, most other kinds of files, like a Word file or a PDF or a JPEG, in the sense that you can go ahead and take that file and upload it online, like to our Google Drive for this project, or email it to a friend or something like that. So thanks so much for hanging in with me during this video. I know that this was a long one, but I hope that you have some fun editing your audio piece. There will be one more video just sort of wrapping up this section of the project, so when you've played around with some of the editing tools and maybe added some effects or made some changes to your audio and exported it, feel free to continue back in the document and click on that last video to wrap things up. Thanks again for being here, and I will see you there.